Well, let's see here. So Chris from a question from Chris. Can I use trekking poles? Specifically for Quad Rock, we do have a rule against trekking poles just because of the tight nature of the out and back section on timber. We do take special requests and certainly consider those for anybody who might have some special needs for trekking poles. So Chris, if you fall into that category, feel free to shoot us an email and we'll certainly consider it.
And I see Nathan is wondering, or Carson is wondering about filling up his bladder at the Horsetooth Mountain Park water fountain. I mean, sure, you could, but there's an aid station right there too with fast pour pitchers. So whichever you think is most convenient. But yeah, no rules against that.
I haven't, even though I live half a mile from the trailhead, I'm not even sure the water fountain. I know that the pump is on.
That water fountain was on Saturday.
Okay. But yeah, I guess that would be the same as visiting the aid station. If you're in the aid area. Okay, a comment from John. Looking forward to having you, John. Thanks for the compliments. We're looking forward to a fun weekend too. I did just take a peek at the weather forecast. This is via Weather Underground, specifically for the neighborhood by Lowry State Park. That particular forecast from Weather Underground has a high of 80 degrees in the Lowry area, which is a little cooler than has been forecast the last couple of days. The forecast in Fort Collins still seems to be mid to high 80s. But if we see only a high of 80, we'll take that for sure. For those of you starting in the 50-mile waves, the 4:30 forecast was for a temperature of 55 degrees, which is optimal. And then at 8 o'clock, which is our final wave, there was a forecast high of 63 degrees. So reasonably comfortable for the start of the race.
What time is the high supposed to hit?
Oh, I would imagine early afternoon. Looks like there'll be some light cloud cover. Chris, nice one for you, Brad. Will we have gels at the aid stations?
Yes. So we will have V-Fuel gels at all the aid stations. I believe salted apple caramel and vanilla will be the main flavors, along with some variety packs. And these are individual gels. If you've run our races in the past, you know we usually have the bulk bottles. Just for less contact points this year, they are individually packaged gels.
Did you say what flavors we have, Brad? Sorry.
Yeah, vanilla, salted apple caramel, and variety.
Awesome. Okay, another aid station question. This is specific to 25 milers. Number one, do 25 milers need drop bags? If so, what do you recommend that Carson puts in said drop bag? I'll throw this one at you, Brad.
Okay. So the three main things I typically put in drop bags are clothing, food, and personal care products. So for clothing, there's no water crossings on course. It's not expected to be any moisture. I wouldn't see anywhere that you'd need to change shoes, socks, any clothing. So I would say you can completely forego that category. Food, if there's specific foods that you've been training with that you know work well for you, that we don't already have at the aid stations, that would be a good thing to put in your drop bags. You don't want to carry 25 miles worth of Scratch Lab shoes from the start. Throw some in some drop bags. And then finally, personal care products. So hopefully everyone stays nice and chafing free on race day. But if you are fearing the chafe monster, or you have an aversion to sharing bug spray or sunscreen at the aid stations, which all of those will be the spray variety, no dipping fingers into communal tubs. But if there's anything you think you might need in that realm, those would be something else to put in your drop bags. But honestly, I think 99% of the 25 milers will get by just fine without any drop bag.
I would agree with that. I think so. We are offering drop bag service to all aid stations for this year's race, and that specifically is for folks to the aid stations that we don't normally send drop bags to. That's for folks who, for whatever reason, may not want to use or just want to be completely self-sufficient and not have contact with our aid stations, and totally understand that. That's why we're offering that drop bag service. But I think if you're comfortable using the aid stations, and of course we have safety and cleanliness procedures in place for those aid stations, then you should be fine running the 25 miler without drop bags.
And just to reiterate while we're on drop bags, so Soldier Canyon and Arthur's West drop bags can be dropped off either at packet pickup on Friday or race morning. Drop bags going to Horsetooth or Towers have to be dropped off on Friday night, just because of the transport logistics. And we strongly discourage drop bags at Towers. That is our one backcountry aid station. It's very limited access. It's the last aid station to come out if you're thinking of when you'll pick up your drop bags. And it's really only there as a safety measure for those who seriously need that availability.
Okay, so we have a wave start question before we get to that. So for this year's race, we do have 7 wave starts. So that's it, so that we can keep obviously our numbers at the start down to a standard that the county is comfortable with, which is less than 50. I think our biggest wave is 43, 44. Is that right, Brad?
Sounds right.
Yeah. So we have 3 start waves in the 50-mile race, and then we have 4 in the 25-mile race. So the first start wave is at 4:30 in the morning, so an hour earlier than we typically start for the 50-miler. So we have 50-mile, we have 4:30 wave, 5 wave, and 5:30 wave. Chris is asking if we have a 4:30 wave start time, what time should we be arriving and parking? So Brad, we're open for business at
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Yep. So the standard for all the waves is we don't want you there more than a half hour before your start. For everyone but the 4:30 wave, that means don't show up until the previous wave has departed. But same logic applies for this one. And that's Melissa under the pseudonym Chris. She was one of our stellar Kelly Lake volunteers up at Never Summer.
Okay, so just a couple of notes on some of the safety procedures that we're putting in place this year for this year's race, similar to what we did for Never Summer 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago now. So we do have a face covering mandate, and this is specific to when you are not running or eating / drinking. So when you're waiting for your start, so you've arrived half an hour before your start wave, you're milling around, doing what you do before the start of a race, we do require that you have a face covering on during that time. And then as soon as we've started the race, you're free to take the face covering off. And then when you enter aid stations, assuming you are approaching the aid stations and you're asking for your bottle refill or whatever food you're after, when you're in the aid station, you will be required to put your mask back on. Of course, all our volunteers will be masked at the aid station too. And then once you have what you need from the aid station, you can take it outside of the aid station area which is what we're describing as the mask zone, and take it to an eating, drinking area where you can remove your mask, eat and drink. And then once you're finished with your race, we will, of course, require that you have a mask before you go on your merry way. Brad, you want to talk specifically about any of the aid station procedures beyond masking?
Yeah, so just to give a quick outline, so the goal at the aid stations is to limit contact. So both in terms of hands reaching in, handling a bunch of things, and close contact between the volunteers and the runners. So fluid service is no touch. You handle your own bottle, your own bladder, open it up. Volunteer stands with a pitcher out at arm's length and pours in. Food service, there's not going to be communal bowls on the tables. There's also not going to be individual servings scattered on the tables. It's going to be one person, maximum of 2 at a time at the table, taking their individual servings. So that way there's not all these hands reaching onto the table at the same time. It likely means there will be backups on occasion, lines at the aid stations to get food. That's just part of the safety plan for this year. To help speed things up a bit, we will have some pre-packed to-go bags that if you say, I want a bag of pretzels, they'll have a bag of pretzels ready. And we'll also have menus posted before the aid stations so that you can know what you want when you get there.
Okay, we have a headphone question. So for all of our races, we have a headphone policy. This is kind of tied to our insurance policy.
We changed insurance, Nick. We no longer have that policy.
From our insurers, which kind of changes that policy. So you are welcome to wear headphones. What we do ask is that if you are wearing a headphone, that either you just do the one earbud or you have it on a relatively low volume, so that if somebody is trying to get your attention, maybe that's, especially this year, you know, if they're trying to pass you and, you know, maybe require a bit of space to get around you, they can get your attention. So the one earbud rule, or just keep the volume low, then that will be fine. Okay, Ryan has a question. Thank you, Ryan. You're going to be volunteering at the Horsetooth Aid Station from 5 to 5. Should we plan on packing our breakfast and lunch and any other food for the day, Brad?
So specifically at Horsetooth Aid Station, the rental of the pavilions we use comes with the grill. And Rob, our longtime aid captain there, loves to fire up the grill to feed the volunteers. So when it comes to lunch, you can expect him to throw some burgers or dogs or that on. If you have dietary preferences, drop him an email just so he knows in advance what to pack. For breakfast, yeah, probably bring your own. For volunteers at all of the aid stations, we budget a little extra food so that there can be some quality control sampling. So, you know, if your idea of breakfast is a handful of M&Ms and tortilla wrap, yeah, that's cool.
Okay, question from Carson. Do you have a few good tips for a first-time Quad Rock 25 miler? So I'm sure you've looked at the course profile, Carson. The loop is made up essentially of 3 good-sized climbs and 3 good-sized descents. It's makes for a relatively long 25 miles. Adds about a mile in extra elevation gain to your 25 miles of as the crow flies mileage. Those first 2, if you're well trained, and I'm going to assume that you're reasonably well trained, then those first 2 climbs will probably go smoothly for you, and you'll feel good, fit, and full of life. The third climb, which are the switchbacks going up Howard, over towards Arthur's Rock, and then down Timber, catches a lot of people. So my number 1 tip would be to not get too carried away on those first two climbs and keep something in reserve for that final climb. And bear in mind that for that final climb on Howard, it is a pretty exposed trail. It gets a direct hit from the morning sun. So I'd recommend, before you leave the Arthur's aid station, which is the aid station before you hit that third climb, that you've got your body temperature regulated, doused with a bit of water if needs be, maybe taking on a bit of ice, so that you're ready for that climb, which is likely to be a warm climb. And of course, it's your third climb of the day. So measure your effort, get over it, and then once you're over that, you've got a bomber 3.5 miles down to the finish. You will be able to see the finish from about 1.5 miles away. It is a long, snaking trail down to the finish. So be patient. It will come eventually, but those switchbacks are long, and they take a while to get down. Other than that, I would suggest, you're conscientious of staying on top of your fluids and your calorie intake so that your energy levels are good for the whole morning.
Yeah, leave every aid station with full bottles, full bladder. Yeah, and I would add on to that as more of a mid to back of the packer. You're not going to be able to do the climbs faster than you can breathe. If you find yourself on any of the climbs breathing at an advanced rate, that is your sign to back off. Don't set the pace by what your legs feel like. Set the pace by what you can do with controlled breathing. On the first climb, especially with the crowd of people, it's really easy to get sucked into a faster pace than is comfortable for you and arrive up at towers in oxygen debt and spend that whole descent into Horsetooth just trying to recover. That's not the most fun 10 miles. Let's see. If people have other questions, toss them into the chat. We'd be happy to give you advice on the race, on running in general. Nick can tell you about raising kids. I can tell you about raising dogs.
Okay, so following up on the 25-mile question, do you have tips for the 50-mile race as well?
I have a big one.
Yeah, shoot.
So the place we see the most drops of anywhere on course is at the turnaround aid station. After you've finished your first loop, heading back out for your second. A lot of people arrive in there depleted, and it's real tempting just to stay in that chair and decide, 25 is good enough. Once you see the finish line, like Nick said, and you have 1.5 miles to go, just start emptying your pack. Drink everything you have on board, eat everything you have on board. You don't want to arrive at the aid station depleted and depend on it to get your energy back up. You want to enter the aid station with plenty of energy so that you can get what you need and get back out. Avoid that temptation.
Yeah, I would add to that you also want to come in with a determined mindset. This is just a 25-mile aid station, turn around, get what I need, and get back on the trail. No lingering. The temptation will grow the longer you stay there, not to carry on. Another thought on the 50-mile race. So probably the toughest climb on the course is the 5th climb. So you get to the turnaround, you go over the top of Timber, you come down Howard into the Arthur's Rock aid station. And then you have 3.5 miles, I think it is, back up to Towers via Mill Creek. But that is actually the longest climb on the course. It is your 5th climb on the course. It's not your 6th. Once you're on that 6th climb, I think you can really start to smell the barn. But on that 5th climb, it's a tough climb. It's loose on Mill Creek at times. It's probably one of the steeper climbs in addition to the biggest overall climb on the course. So, come into that Arthur's aid station, make sure you fill up on your calories and your water and just kind of get your head down and focus on just working your way up Mill Creek. Once you get to Mill Creek, it's a nice descent down to Horsetooth, and then you have your final climb. Once you're on that final climb, you can start smelling the barn. So, stay focused for that 5th climb. That would be my #1 big tip, aside from getting out of the 25-mile turnaround. And then obviously for this year, you know, typically we run the race in May, so heat doesn't tend to be a major issue. Some years it is, but more often than not, it's a cooler day for Quad Rock. But of course this year, it's going to be warm. So just pay attention to regulating body temperature, use the aid stations, use the ice that we have at the aid stations, and of course the water as well to cool off before you leave. Jerry asks, is it too late to upgrade from 25 to 50? Brad? Oh, do we have a...
Yes. Yes, if you want to upgrade, so we're stuffing packets starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow, so you have about 14.5 hours left if you want to make that change. Send us an email, registration@gnarrunners.com. It will be $20 for the difference in the registration, and we'll get that change made for you.
Okay, well, there are any final questions, throw them at us. Don't want to keep you guys any longer than we have to. Trying to look through some prepped questions that we had, anything that we didn't cover already. Oh, some online tracking. This was in one of our earlier emails, but we will have close to live splits through the aid stations. So if you have friends or family that want to follow you, close to live aid station splits will be going up on opensplittime.org. We'll post a link to that on Facebook and our other social media outlets. But you can also find that link in, do we have a direct link to the current page, Brad, in the email that went out? Yeah.
It's on our website, it's on Ultra Sign Up, and it will be on Facebook.
Yeah. And then, so we'll have a couple of folks out there with the team who will be doing some Instagram updates from a couple of aid stations around the course. And then we will also have some Twitter race updates going out as well. So there'll be a bit of action there to follow the goings on from the day.
I'd like to mention real quick how cutoffs work. So with the waves, we want to give everyone access to equal time on course. Those who are starting in the earlier waves for a distance don't have an advantage. So each wave has its own set of cutoffs. So if you're starting with the 50 milers, if you're in the 4:30 wave, then your cutoff at the turnaround aid station is 11:15 a.m. If you start in the 5 o'clock wave, then your cutoff is 11:45, half hour later, and so on and so forth. The one place that doesn't apply is the finish line. The finish line is a soft cutoff. If you've met all the hard cutoffs on course and you finish the 25 miles or the 50 miles, you count as a finisher.
And we can't wait to see your finish. We're super pumped to be able to put the race on this Saturday. We got to extend a big thank you to Larimer County and Laurie State Park for allowing us to put the race on, and also to Larimer County Public Health for approving our plan. And we look forward to seeing you out there. Brad, do you have any final thoughts before we call it an evening?
What are you wearing there, Nick?
Oh, well, this is our latest from Boco. It is a GNAR Runners mesh trucker. These will be available if anybody's interested, along with some other race merch at Packet Pickup and after the race, before the race. But yeah, looking forward to a fun day, guys. Thanks. I know we have some volunteers here too. Thanks to our volunteers for tuning in, and also to you, the runners. And we shall look forward to seeing you bright and early, or dark and early, depending on when you start, on Saturday morning. So thanks, everyone.